The sky wasn't blue anymore. It was red, burning, angry red. Cora, the young alien girl with violet skin and wide glowing eyes, crouched behind the ruins of her once beautiful home. Ashes floated through the air like snow. Her claws trembled as explosions rocked the ground. Her people, the Liari, had lost. The war came fast. No one expected it. The invaders were not monsters from deep space. They were their own neighbors. The Varnic Empire, greedy, merciless, hungry for land and slaves. They didn't care if you were young, old, sick, or scared. Cora had only escaped because her mother, before being dragged away, had screamed at her to run. That scream still echoed in her ears. Now she was alone, hungry, afraid, and she had nowhere to go. Across the valley, hidden behind a smoking ridge, a human scavenger named Jack watched through broken goggles. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hero. Just a man who came to these ruined worlds to gather scrap and survive. Jack wasn't supposed to be here. This system was restricted, but his ship was old and his food was low. He needed fuel. He needed parts. But what he saw down there wasn't junk. It was a child. No, an alien girl. He blinked. Rubbed his goggles. She was barefoot, dirty, and hugging a cracked metal pipe like it was a shield. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. Jack swore softly under his breath. He could leave. Walk away. Stay out of trouble. But instead, he started walking toward her. Cora saw the figure approaching and panicked. She tried to crawl deeper into the wreckage, but her body was weak. Her stomach growled. Her lips were dry. When the man got close, she saw something strange. He wasn't Varnic. He was tall but not armored. His skin was light. His voice was calm. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said gently. Cora didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. She didn't run. She just stared, wide-eyed and shaking. Jack reached slowly into his pack and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it and held out half a protein bar. Cora sniffed the air. Her eyes locked on the food. He placed it on a rock and stepped back. She waited. A minute passed. Then two. She moved like a starving animal, snatched the bar, ate it in one bite. Her eyes were wet. Jack sat down across from her. "I'm Jack," he said, tapping his chest. "Jack." Cora didn't reply, but she didn't run. That was enough. That night the ruins were cold. The wind howled through broken walls. Jack couldn't sleep. He sat near his small campfire, staring at the stars. He'd seen war before. He hated it. But this little alien girl reminded him of something he tried to forget. His own daughter, long ago. Before Earth's own war. He looked over. She was curled up in a ball, using a piece of old cloth as a blanket. He made a decision then. A strange one. He wasn't going to leave her here. He was going to help her, even if it cost him everything. The next morning, Cora followed Jack silently. He led her to the scrapyard where his ship had crash-landed. It was barely holding together. Rusty metal, old parts, broken hull. He smiled sadly. "It's not much," he said, "but maybe we can build something better." Cora tilted her head. Jack crouched beside her, pointing at the old cargo modules and junk. "Home," he said. Tapped his chest. "Human," then pointed at her. "Liari." Then at the scraps. "Home," Cora blinked. Then, slowly, she smiled for the first time. Cora had never seen a human up close before. Now, one was talking to her, feeding her, and giving her shelter. She didn't know what to think. Her people always warned her about humans, strange, unpredictable, dangerous, but this one. He was quiet, careful, gentle. Jack wasn't sure if she even understood him, but every day she followed him like a shadow. At first, she stayed behind trees or metal piles. But soon, she stood beside him while he sorted through old parts. Jack didn't talk much. He just worked. One morning, he handed her a wrench and pointed to a broken piece of metal. "Twist," he said, motioning with his hands. "Like this." Cora hesitated, then tried. It slipped. Jack chuckled. Not a loud laugh, just soft, like a father teaching a child. He showed her again, slower this time. She copied him. This time it worked. Jack smiled and gave her a small nod. "Good." Cora smiled too. The days passed and the shelter slowly took shape. It was small, a dome made of old cargo panels and ship plating, but strong enough to block the cold wind and rain. Inside, Jack made a small heater from scrap. The floor was covered in cloth and padding. He built a bench for sitting and a corner. For supplies, it wasn't much, but for Cora, it was everything. She touched the walls gently, like they were sacred. She whispered something in her language, a quiet thanks. Then she looked at Jack and said her first word in human tongue, "Home." Jack froze, then nodded, double quotes, yes. Home. One evening, while repairing the water system, Jack noticed a wound on Cora's arm. It was hidden under dried blood and ash. She had never said anything. She had learned to hide pain. Jack frowned and took out his medkit. "Let me help," he said. Cora pulled away at first, shaking her head, but Jack held up his hand slowly and pointed to himself. "Friend?" She hesitated, then nodded. He cleaned the wound gently, wrapping it with soft cloth and medicine gel. Cora winced but stayed still. When he finished, she whispered something in her language again. Jack didn't know what it meant, but the way she looked at him, it wasn't fear anymore. It was trust. Later that night, rain began to pour. The fire crackled inside the little shelter. Cora sat beside Jack, hugging a warm cloth around her shoulders. She pointed to his old tool belt and made a sound like J-H-H-C-K. Jack chuckled. "Yes, Jack." She pointed to herself. "Kaora." He smiled. "Cora." She nodded proudly. They sat like that for a while, two lost souls from different worlds sharing warmth, silence, and something unspoken. Then a sound broke the peace. A deep rumble from the sky. Cora tensed. Jack stood up, listening. The rumble grew louder. Engines. Not his ship. A patrol. Jack grabbed his binoculars and stepped outside. Through the trees, blinking red lights floated in the sky. Varnak scouts. They were looking for survivors. Or slaves. Jack turned back fast. "Cora, hide." She didn't understand the words, but she understood the urgency. She crawled into the hollow space under the floor, the space Jack had made for storage. Jack threw a panel over the opening just as the lights passed overhead. He stood completely still, heart pounding. The patrol ship circled once, then flew on. Minutes passed. Jack exhaled slowly. He opened the panel. Cora looked up, wide-eyed. Jack offered a hand. "You're safe," he said softly. She took it. That night, Jack didn't sleep. He sat awake, staring at the sky. He had broken a rule by helping her. If the Varnak found out, they'd kill him or worse, but he didn't regret it. Cora was more than just an alien. She was someone who needed help, someone worth saving. And now, he was no longer just surviving. He had a purpose. Jack didn't wake to birds or sunlight. He woke to coughing. Cora. Her breath was shallow. Her skin, normally smooth and glowing, had faded to a dull gray. She clutched her stomach, eyes glassy, body shivering. Jack moved quickly. His mind raced. The girl was sick, and he wasn't a doctor. He dug through his supplies, most of them scavenged or stolen from abandoned outposts. Inside an old crate, he found a sealed medical injector. Expired, maybe, but it was all he had. He showed it to Cora and pointed to her arm. She didn't flinch this time. She trusted him now. Jack injected her gently, then wrapped her in every blanket he could find. He sat beside her, refusing to sleep. He had seen people die before, but this wasn't some stranger. This was Cora. He whispered softly to keep her calm. "You're gonna be okay, I promise." By morning, her fever had broken. Jack noticed it first when she opened her eyes and blinked up at him. Her breathing had calmed. She gave a weak smile. Jack exhaled deeply, laughing through his relief. "You scared me, kid." Cora said nothing, but she reached out and touched his hand. A quiet, simple gesture, but Jack felt something shift inside him. He wasn't just building a shelter anymore. He was building a life. The next few days were peaceful. Together, they worked on the home, adding metal panels, patching holes, even building a water collector from old engine pipes. Cora was a fast learner. She picked up human words quickly. Hot, cold, food, fix. Sometimes she would point to things and ask, "Name?" Jack always answered, no matter how small or broken the object was. To Cora, everything was worth learning. One afternoon, they discovered a broken cleaning bot deep in the junkyard. Its legs were missing, and wires stuck out like bones. Cora poked it curiously. "Dead?" Jack laughed. "Not yet." Together, they dragged it back to the workshop. Cora watched while Jack soldered parts, replaced circuits, and rewired the control panel. She handed him tools without being asked, her eyes full of wonder. Finally, with a spark and a buzz, the bot's eyes lit up. It rolled forward clumsily and bumped into Jack's leg. Cora gasped, then burst into laughter. It was the first time Jack had ever heard her laugh. It was the best sound in the world. That night, by the fire, Jack told her stories. He pointed to the stars and spoke of Earth, its blue oceans, green forests, tall cities. Cora listened, fascinated. She had only ever known war, slavery, and fear. But Jack's words painted a different world. A peaceful one. He didn't realize she was crying until she wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. She wasn't sad. She was hopeful, but the peace wouldn't last. The next morning, they heard the sound again, a ship, but this time, it landed. Jack grabbed his scanner. Unmarked transport, 4 life signs. Not Varnick, not registered. That was worse. Scavenger raiders. Mercs. People like Jack used to be, before he grew a conscience. He quickly guided Cora inside and handed her a metal stick. "Hide. Don't come out, no matter what." She nodded, gripping the stick like a weapon. Jack took his old rifle from under the bed. He hadn't used it in years, but he would now, for her. As the footsteps approached the shelter, Jack stepped into the open. 4 men, armed, dirty, laughing. One pointed at the shelter. "Nice setup. Didn't think anyone else would find this trash pile." Another smirked. "You alone, old man?" Jack stood firm. "Yeah, just me." But his heart pounded. Because if they found her, they wouldn't leave. The men stood just 10 steps away, boots sinking into the ash and metal dust. Jack didn't move. Didn't blink. He had been in trouble before. He knew their type: smug, cruel, and always looking for something to take. The leader stepped forward, wearing a cracked helmet and a wide grin. "You built all this by yourself?" Jack shrugged. "Found it like this. Fix some things." The man raised an eyebrow. "You? A lone scavenger doing all this alone? Doesn't look like a one-man job." Jack gripped the rifle tighter. "Believe what you want." One of the others walked toward the shelter's door. Jack's pulse spiked. He stepped into the path. "Stay away from that," the raider smirked. "Why? You hiding something?" Jack didn't answer. That was all they needed. The leader motioned to his men. "Search it." Jack didn't wait. He fired. The rifle kicked and one raider dropped, screaming as his shoulder lit up with plasma fire. The others ducked for cover. One shot back, barely missing Jack's head. Sparks flew from the wall behind him. Inside the shelter, Cora heard everything. Gunshots, yelling. She clutched the metal rod Jack had given her, hiding beneath the floor in silence. But then, the bot, when they had fixed buzzed to life beside her. It rolled forward, blinking. Then it beeped twice and zipped toward the gunfire. Outside, Jack ducked behind a metal slab. His rifle hissed. 2 shots left. Then suddenly the broken cleaning. Bot rolled out from the shelter and stopped near one of the raiders. The man laughed. "What the hell is this thing?" Boom! The bot exploded. Scrap metal tore through his leg. He screamed and dropped. Jack blinked in shock. "You crazy little genius," he muttered. The blast scattered the others. Jack used the moment. He rushed out, tackled one to the ground, and slammed his rifle butt into the raider's head. The last man raised his gun until a rock hit him in the face. Cora, she had come out of hiding. Jack shouted, "No!" The raider turned toward her, but before he could fire, Jack shot him in the chest. Silence returned. Only the wind moved now. 3 raiders lay unconscious or worse. The 4th, the leader, groaned from the ground. Jack walked over and stood above him. "You saw nothing. You met no one. You leave. Now." The man spat blood. "That thing," he growled, glancing at Cora. "It's just a slave. She's not worth this." Jack's expression darkened. "She is to me." Then he knocked the man out cold. That night, Jack sat by the fire, shaking slightly. Cora sat across from him, her hands still dirty from the fight. She looked confused and scared. "Why did you fight for me?" she asked slowly, in broken human tongue. Jack looked up. "Because no one else ever did," he said softly. Cora was quiet. Then she crawled closer and gently leaned her head on his shoulder. Neither of them said anything after that. The fire burned low. The wind was cold. But inside the shelter, it finally felt like family. The next day, they worked together to rebuild what was damaged. The blast from the bot had taken out part of the outer wall, but Cora helped Jack patch it quickly. He watched her work, how fast she learned, how strong her will was, and realized something. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was healing. And so was he. As they added new metal panels, Cora looked at the sky. "More will come," she said. Jack nodded. "I know. But we're ready, right?" Jack smiled. "We will be." He handed her a new tool. She grabbed it like a warrior holding a sword. Together, they kept building. Not just a home, a future. *3. Weeks passed. The small shelter was now more than just metal and wires. Jack and Cora had turned it into something living. A garden of strange alien plants had started to grow in containers outside. Water tanks were full. Solar panels HUMED. It was peaceful, but peace never lasts long on ruined planets. While searching a deeper part of the scrapyard one morning, Cora found something odd, an old beacon half buried in the dirt. She called Jack over. He brushed off the dust. "Military," he muttered. "Could be Varnic. Could be Liari." He cracked it open with a tool and connected it to his scanner. Lines of text flickered on screen. Most were corrupted, but one message repeated. "Liari survivors, gathering point, sector Delta 12. Cora's eyes widened. "Survivors?" she asked in a hopeful whisper. Jack nodded. "Maybe your people, maybe your family." Her heart pounded. For so long she thought she was the last Liari left. "I have to go," she said. Jack looked at her. He didn't want to say no, but sector Delta 12 was far and dangerous. They packed. That night, Jack repaired a small rover from the scrapyard's backlot. It barely ran, but it had a battery, wheels, and a weak shield array. Before they left, Cora stood in front of the shelter and placed a hand on the wall. "This place saved me." Jack smiled. "No, you saved it. You brought it to life." Then they drove off into the wild, abandoned lands beyond the valley. The journey was harsh. Storms rolled across the sky, black clouds flashing with violet lightning. They avoided Varnak patrols and dangerous scavengers. Once, they passed a field of broken machines, still sparking with old combat AI, twitching like ghosts. Cora didn't complain. She stayed brave. Alert. Jack felt proud. She was becoming something strong. Not just a survivor, a fighter. On the third night, they camped beside a dry riverbed. As Jack fixed a wire in the rover's engine, Cora sat by the fire, silent. After a while, she spoke. "Do you think my mother's there?" Jack paused, then sat beside her. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but if she is, she'd be proud of you." Cora looked up. "You really think so?" Jack nodded. "You've built a home, faced death, saved lives, and you're not even grown yet." Cora smiled, though her eyes glistened. The next day, they reached Sector Delta-12. It was nothing like they expected. A crater, burned, silent. No signal. No camp. Only ash. Only bones. Cora stood frozen. Tears welled in her eyes. No. She ran through the ruins, calling names, her mother's, her brother's, but there was no answer. Jack walked slowly behind her, saying nothing. Sometimes there are no words. Sometimes pain just has to pass through. Cora fell to her knees, holding a piece of cloth marked with the Liari family crest. That was all that remained. Hours later, as the sun began to fall, Jack sat beside her quietly. Finally, she spoke. "They're gone." Jack didn't lie. He didn't say it would be okay. Instead, he said the only thing that mattered: "You're not." She looked at him. "I'm still here," she whispered. Jack nodded. "And so am I." They buried what they could. Then Cora placed a small stone marker and whispered a Liari prayer. Not just for her people. But for the past. She stood up slowly, brushing dust from her knees. "I don't want to die out here," she said. Jack looked at her. "You won't." "I want to live," she said. "Really live. Help others. Build things. Make new memories." Jack smiled. "Then let's go home." Cora didn't speak much on the journey back, but something had changed in her eyes. Something stronger than sadness. She was no longer just a scared girl looking for a home. Now, she knew she had to build one with her own hands, her own choices, her own heart. Jack saw it too. And he didn't treat her like a child anymore. He treated her like a partner. When they returned to their little shelter, the valley felt different. It wasn't just a place made of scrap metal anymore. It was theirs. A symbol of survival. Of new beginnings. Cora stepped out of the rover and looked around with clear purpose. "This is our place," she said softly. Jack smiled. It always was. They worked hard for the next few days. Cora drew new sketches, ideas for expanding the shelter. Jack helped her weld support beams and attach solar lights. They built another room, a storage hut, even a roof garden. Wordlessly, their bond deepened. Every time Cora looked at Jack, she didn't just see a human. She saw someone who gave when he had nothing, who fought when he could have walked away. Someone who believed in her future even when she didn't. One evening, while watching the stars, Jack turned to her. "I used to think I was just passing through this galaxy," he said. "No roots, no meaning. Just collecting junk, trying to stay alive." Cora looked at him. "And now?" Jack exhaled. "Now I think I've finally arrived." Cora nodded slowly. "Me too." They sat in silence, the fire crackling between them. Soft wind brushing their faces. For the first time in years, Jack felt peace. But peace, like always, was never safe for long. It started with a distant noise, a low hum. Then static. Jack turned toward the comm unit he had rigged from old Varnak parts. A red light blinked. Someone was transmitting. He grabbed his headset and adjusted the frequency. A voice came through crackly, scared and urgent. Anyone. Help, Varnak raiders, children, hiding, need safe place. Cora ran up behind him. She had heard every word. Jack turned slowly. They didn't have to speak. They both knew what had to be done. That night they made a plan. The shelter had enough supplies for 2 more people, maybe 3. But they could expand, build more walls, catch more water, share food. Do you think we're ready? Cora asked. Jack smiled. We weren't ready before either, but we made it. Cora took a breath. Then let's help them. Jack nodded. We'll bring them home. By morning, they packed light and armed themselves with scrap weapons. Jack fixed up the rover's engine while Cora loaded medkits and water flasks. As they rolled out of the valley, the shelter behind them looked brighter. Somehow. Not because of the metal or wires, but because of what it stood for now. Hope. They followed the signal into the outer wilds beyond the scrapyard. Beyond the rust plains into old war zones covered in black glass and twisted wreckage. They found the source of the message. Inside an overturned transport ship. 3 children. Alien, skinny, frightened. One was injured. The others too weak to walk far. But when they saw Cora and Jack, they didn't run. They reached out. And Cora took their hands. That night, the group camped under the stars. Jack boiled food over a fire. Cora cleaned the wounds of the youngest child. They didn't say it out loud, but both felt it. This was no longer just about survival. It was about rebuilding. About choosing kindness, even in the darkest places. Back at the shelter, the group arrived days later, tired, sore, but alive. Cora stood in front of the new guests and spread her arms. Welcome, she said in perfect human language. This is your home now. Asterisk. The shelter was no longer a shelter. It was a village now. Small, yes, but growing. Where once there was just scrap and silence, now there were voices, laughter, children playing with bots. A garden blooming with both human and Liari plants. Jack stood on the ridge, looking down at what they'd built. He never expected to stay here this long, never expected to care this deeply. But now, he couldn't imagine leaving. Cora walked up beside him, carrying a toolbox. We need to add more solar panels, she said, brushing a loose braid of hair behind her ear. Jack looked at her and smiled. You don't stop, do you? Cora smirked. You said, a home is never finished. I listened. They both chuckled. She wasn't the same scared girl anymore. She stood taller. Now, spoke clearer, carried confidence like a badge. Later, Jack taught the older kids how to make simple tools. Cora taught them how to plant food in dry soil. One of the little ones, a boy with red eyes and tiny horns, pointed at Jack and asked, Is he your father? Cora blinked. Jack turned to her, unsure what she'd say. She smiled and knelt beside the child. No, but he's something even better. The boy tilted his head. What's better than a father? Cora looked up at Jack, a human who chose to stay. That evening, music played from an old speaker Jack had fixed. The children danced. Someone made a stew using alien roots and earth. Seasoning. It tasted strange, but good. People smiled. They were safe. They were together. That was enough. Just before midnight, a ship passed high above the valley. It didn't stop. It didn't scan. It just blinked across the sky like a distant reminder of the galaxy outside. Jack looked up. So did Cora. He said, Still want to leave one day? She was quiet for a moment. Then shook her head. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Jack nodded slowly. There's work to do here anyway. The next morning, they began building another shelter. This time, it wasn't just for survivors. It was for teachers, for travelers, for anyone searching for something better. Cora took a piece of metal and etched a symbol onto it, the crest of her family, now fused with a human circle. She placed it above the new doorway. Jack asked, "What does it mean?" She smiled. "It means this place belongs to all of us." Time passed. They built walls, greenhouses, classrooms. Some came to stay. Others came just to rest. But the name of the place spread slowly like a whisper. Haven. A home for the forgotten. A refuge for the lost. A chance for those with nowhere else to go. Years later, Jack sat under the stars again, older now, grayer. Cora sat beside him, no longer a girl but a strong young leader. They didn't speak for a while. Finally, Cora asked, "Do you ever miss Earth?" Jack looked up. "I thought I would," he said, "but now, this feels more like home than Earth ever did." She leaned against his shoulder. "You gave me everything," she whispered. "No," he said gently. "You built it yourself. I just handed you a wrench." They laughed softly together. And in the quiet, their home shined, built from scrap, forged in trust, and powered by something stronger than any machine. Hope.